There is a strange moment in the awakening journey. When you sit still in the quiet space, and suddenly, you no longer feel like a person. It is not a loss, but an expansion. It is not a feeling of being lost, but of melting. You are no longer a small, solitary being looking up at the starry sky, but you are the sky. You no longer search for the sacred out there, because you realize you and the universe are one. Strangely, that feeling does not come through reason. It is not a logical deduction or a religious philosophy. It is simply a deep, primal, undeniable perception. It is as though the entire universe is whispering within you, "We were never separate." And you believe it, without evidence, without reason. That belief does not come from the mind, but from the soul. Before, you felt lost. You searched for meaning, chased signs, and wondered where you belonged. Every time you felt alone, you looked to the sky, hoping someone out there would listen. But now, you no longer need to look up. You realize, what you were seeking was never far away. It lived within you. You begin to see yourself reflected in everything. In the morning light shining through the leaves, in the breeze gently brushing your cheek, in the eyes of a stranger smiling softly. There is no longer me and the world, only us. You sit amidst life without trying to control it. You feel a flow around you, lifting you up, guiding you gently but surely. And strangely, when you stop searching for connection, it comes. When you stop asking, "Am I on the right path?" a mysterious peace fills you. You no longer need signs, because you have become the sign. The universe no longer speaks to you, but begins to speak through you. This is the union, a profound turning point marking that you have awakened. No more questions about identity. No more doubts about purpose. You know you are a part of a vast intelligence, and that intelligence is living, breathing, creating through you. And as you walk with that feeling, everything begins to change. You no longer struggle to control the flow of life, you glide on it. You no longer pray with hope, but act with faith, and deep within your heart, you know, I am no longer lost, because I was never away from home. There is a miracle that happens when you pass through the gate of awakening and step into the stage of truly living with your soul. That is the awakening of intuition. No longer a vague feeling that fades away. Intuition now becomes clear, steadfast, and strong like an inner voice, not loud, but impossible to ignore. It no longer suggests, it guides. Before, you lived in a loop of doubt. Should I do this or that? Is this the right choice? Can I trust myself? You often turned to others for confirmation. You asked friends. You read books. You watched videos, but the more you sought, the farther you felt from yourself. Every decision became a battle, between logic and emotion, between fear and desire, between should and want. But then, one day, the change comes as gently as the wind. You begin to hear the voice inside, not urging, not arguing, just simply knowing. No analysis, no reason, no proof, but absolute clarity. When something is right, you feel it with your entire body, with a clear sensation, like light in the fog. When something is wrong, even though it looks perfect on the outside, you feel a constriction, as though the energy inside is being pulled back. And for the first time, you do not resist that feeling. You no longer need to ask others. You no longer need to seek advice. You no longer need to wait for signs. You know, and you believe. That is the turning point for a soul that has awakened. Intuition is no longer an alternative to logic, but the compass. You realize that the mind can be programmed, influenced, deceived, but intuition cannot. It is the voice of the deepest part of you, of the soul, of the sacred life force that is guiding you along your destined path. You begin to live according to that guidance, even when it is not logical, not popular, not safe, and you are surprised to see everything begins to align. The people you meet, the opportunities that appear, the doors that open, as if the universe is silently agreeing with your choice. You learn to trust that intuition doesn't need to be logical, it needs to be true. And true not to the majority, but to the path your soul has chosen. No more sleepless nights analyzing. No more months of regret for not listening to your heart. Now, every decision, whether to turn left or right, stay or go, start or finish, comes from the connection with your inner feeling. And the strange thing is, you are no longer afraid of being wrong. Because you know that wrong is also part of right. Wrong is also guidance, also direction. Wrong is no longer failure, but a clearer orientation. You become one with the flow. Intuition is the flowing water within you, gentle, but determined, and you learn to glide with it, instead of swimming against it. The world out there will still be filled with noise, opinions, warnings, the fears of others, but you no longer need them. You have found your permanent guide inside. And the most wonderful thing? That guide is you, the pure, wise version of yourself who knows exactly where you are going and who you are. When you trust your intuition, you are no longer the one looking for the way. You are the creator. There is a very special silence in the soul when you look at the things you once craved and realize they no longer hold power over you. Money, fame, possessions, admiring gazes, the things that were once the driving forces in your life now become light as a feather. Not because you reject them, but because you have freed yourself from dependence on them. This is one of the deepest transformations after completing the awakening journey, when material desires are no longer the guiding star, no longer manipulating your choices, and no longer defining your self-worth. Remember, there was a time when you thought that if you had enough money, you would be happy. If you were recognized, you would feel valuable. If you achieved big goals, you would be at peace. You tried, you sacrificed, you traded, perhaps even your freedom and soul, to reach the peaks that society celebrates. But when you touched a part of it, instead of fulfillment, you felt empty. Each achievement led to a new desire. Deeper, bigger, as if you were chasing an illusion in the desert. The closer you got, the farther it moved away. Then, one day, amidst that weariness, something awakened, a realization, a question. Why do I still feel incomplete, even though I have more than before? That moment marks the end of the thirst for material things. Not by abandoning everything and living in asceticism, but by an inner freedom from dependency on them. You still appreciate the value of money, because you understand it as a form of energy. You still enjoy beauty, convenience, success, because they are expressions of a complete reality. But now, you are no longer manipulated by them. You no longer need them to feel enough. You no longer measure life by wealth, degrees, or fame. You measure by peace, by real connection, by the righteousness of your soul. And that is a radiant freedom. You begin to make decisions not based on what will bring the most profit, but on what truly makes me shine. You no longer work just for money, but for passion, and strangely, when you do what is true for the soul, money starts to come naturally, without force. You no longer want more to show off to someone, to fill a void in your heart, or to prove something. You simply want to live true, and let prosperity be the natural reward for living true. You also begin to look at others with a different perspective. You no longer envy outward wealth, because you know true value cannot be seen. You no longer judge others by the cars they drive, the houses they live in, or the number of followers they have. You feel their frequency, their energy, their presence, the depth of their hearts. And most importantly, you no longer judge yourself by material things. No more feeling inferior when others have more than you. No more trying to prove yourself. No more chasing trends to belong. You belong to yourself, and that is more than enough. I can have everything, but I am no longer controlled by anything. That is the silent power of a soul that has awakened. When you enter this state, you will see a miracle. Abundance begins to find you, not because you cling to it, but because you have let go. Loneliness was once a fear, a terrifying silence that made you restless, seeking to fill it with sound, light, social media, meaningless conversations, or temporary relationships, anything, or anyone, to keep you from sitting still with yourself. You were ready to accept. Yet, on the awakening journey, there comes a profound turning point that cannot be undone. You no longer avoid loneliness, you seek it. And then you discover something great that few people talk about. Silence does not kill you, it saves you. When you sit in solitude and no longer feel empty. When you sit alone and no longer feel abandoned. When you no longer feel the need to prove your worth by the presence of others. That is when you know you have reached a new dimension of the soul. Loneliness is no longer emptiness, but sacred space, where you meet your true self. In silence, you hear the inner voice. In the absence of others, you see your true energy. Not mixed, not diluted. You begin to realize that some things can only be healed in silence. Some answers only appear when there is no noise around you. You learn to be the most honest companion to yourself. No longer rushing out to connect. You carefully choose who enters your energy field. You understand that the presence of others is a privilege, not a requirement. And you no longer cling to connections that have drained, whether friendships, love, or communities, just because you fear emptiness. You do not isolate yourself, but you treasure privacy as sacred ground. There, you are free to be yourself, without a mask, without performing, without fulfilling anyone's expectations. You find peace when reading alone. When walking with no one by your side. When closing your eyes and feeling the life inside you without needing to share it with anyone. And strangely, just when you need no one, the right people start to find you. You no longer communicate to fill the void, but to share complete energy. You no longer need a ton of relationships. You only need a few connections that truly touch the soul. Loneliness helps you distinguish between those who come for selfish gain and those who truly resonate. The deeper you go within, the more you realize every relationship stems from the relationship with yourself. If you cannot be alone, you will always depend on others to fill the internal void. But when you are whole in solitude, every connection becomes a resonance. No longer an exchange. And the greatest miracle is, you no longer feel lonely in your solitude. Because you have touched the beauty of being alone, where everything becomes clear, honest, and refined. Your presence becomes powerful and magnetic. No need to say much. People already feel you're different. You emit an energy of peace, undistracted, unneeding, and that is a type of light that very few people possess. I am not alone. I am with myself, and that is enough. When you reach the point where silence becomes your sanctuary, nothing can shake you. No criticism, no silence from others, no feeling of abandonment can hurt you, because you have become the safest home for yourself. Have you noticed? Recently, something has changed. Strangers smile at you on the corner. Friends begin to confide in you secrets they have never shared with anyone. Some people come to you, not to ask for specific advice, but just to be near you. They say, "There's a calmness around you," or "I don't know why I feel like sharing this with you." And you stand there, surprised, moved, yet silently knowing it is not because you are trying to get attention. It's not because you are shining brightly in a flashy way. On the contrary, you have become quieter, calmer, even retreating from the noise. But it is precisely in that silence that your inner light begins to shine through, a real light. Without needing proof, without needing promotion. This is a profound sign that your awakening journey has reached its peak. You are no longer just receiving light. You have become the source of light. When you heal yourself, your energy changes. When you dare to dive into the darkness within, no longer afraid of being hurt, you become the one who listens truly. When you no longer need attention, you become the place where all eyes are drawn. Not because you want to lead, but because you are the path others can follow. Through energy, frequency, presence. This is not the attraction of the ego. This is the natural magnetism of an awakened soul. You begin to attract souls who are looking for their way. Not those who come for appearances, but those who are seeking truth, healing, guidance. They don't know why they want to be near you, but they feel at peace. They feel they can breathe, let go, cry. You become the one they trust, even though you never tried to save anyone. In fact, your light is living proof for others that there is a way. That it is possible to live a deeper, truer, freer life. That healing is real, and they don't need you to be an expert, a perfect person. They just need you to be yourself. You will also notice another interesting thing. Those who no longer align with your frequency will leave. Not because you hate them, but because the frequency no longer matches. Old relationships based on fear, habits, or energy dependency will fade away, gently, without noise. And alongside that, resonating souls will begin to appear. Those who haven't said much but understand each other. Connections based on mutual respect for energy. Not Li Yi. When you become the light, you no longer search for community. The community finds you. But also, gently remind this. Not everyone who comes to your light is ready to light their own. Some will come only to take energy and then leave. Some will admire you but fear the change you awaken in them. This is when you need an important quality, discernment. Continue to spread light, but don't bear the burden. Love, but don't carry the load. Shine, but don't burn yourself to warm others. And the miracle is, the more you live true to your light, the lighter you become. No pressure to save the world. No burden to be a role model. You just live, and that energy is enough to change the reality around you. You don't need to shout, "I am awakened," just be present. And those who are ready will feel it. One day, You wake up and the world is no longer the same. Everything is still there. People, news, words, city lights, but you see beneath the surface. Not with the physical eye, but with the inner eye. A deep part of you is no longer mesmerized by what shines outward. Instead, you feel the imbalance, the fakeness, the masks you once believed were real. That is when you step into a state of awareness beyond the veil, where illusions can no longer deceive you. This is one of the clearest signs of a soul that has completed the awakening process. You see the truth, even when it is uncomfortable. Before, you believed that everyone spoke the truth. You trusted systems, rules, and what everyone thought. You placed your faith in the media, in education, in the success models society praises. But then, bit by bit, cracks began to appear. You started to feel the contradictions, the absurdities, the things that didn't add up between words and the energy behind them. Someone smiles at you, but you feel coldness in their eyes. A huge promotion, but you sense an underlying anxiety. A universal truth, repeated over and over, but inside you, something disagrees. And then you realize, you no longer trust appearances. You trust perception. You trust intuition. You trust resonance, or the lack of it. You are no longer mesmerized by grand words, by noisy success, by masks that have been too skillfully painted. You don't hate them, you simply see through them. It's as if you are wearing a special pair of glasses, through which you don't just see what is being presented, you see what is being hidden. And in that awareness, you become untouchable. This is a powerful ability, but also very challenging, because you will see fakeness in those you once admired. You will see deceit in the truths that were the foundation of your belief. You will see manipulation in the systems called logical. And even, you will see parts of yourself once led by the false, once wearing masks, once chasing what is not true. But you no longer fear the truth. Because you know, only when you dare to face it, will you truly be free. You learn to live with your eyes open. And those eyes do not look for faults in life, they simply see more clearly. You no longer rush to expose anyone. You don't need to teach others to see like you. Because you understand, the truth doesn't need to be proven, it just needs to be present. You begin to live differently, more subtly, more slowly, more profoundly. You choose who you allow into your energy space. You filter the information you receive. You no longer chase trends. Because you can see clearly which trends are real, and which ones are merely repeating waves of fear. And the most important thing, you are no longer controlled by fear. Because you have seen its roots. You understand that many messages in this world, from news to culture, exist to sow doubt, control perception, and make people question themselves. But you, chosen one, no longer question yourself. When you see the truth, you can't go back, but you don't need to go back, because you have found the light where there was once only darkness. This is the sixth sign, and perhaps one of the most profound powers. Because when you see through illusions, you not only escape deception, you become the mirror for others to begin awakening. If you have gone through each sign silently and your heart resonates with each sentence, this is no longer a coincidence. This is the sacred call meant for you, a soul that has awakened, passed through the mist of illusions, and now stands before the final door, action. Because awakening is not the destination. It is only the beginning. What you see, understand, and feel, if it stops there, will gradually become a burden. But when you choose to live as your true self, walk with your light, and plant the seeds of truth, love, and healing, you have truly begun your soul's mission. This world does not need more know-it-alls.